Welcome to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/Animal Stories for Kids. And now, it's time for our story. Once upon a time, there was a barreleye fish named Ezekiel. Ezekiel the barreleye fish lived way, way down in the ocean, far below where the sunlight can shine. Ezekiel the barreleye fish was one of the stranger-looking fish in the whole sea. Why? Because Ezekiel's head was clear, like glass. You could peek right through it and see his glowing green eyes inside. And Ezekiel the barreleye fish's eyes were a little different than other fish because they pointed straight up. That meant Ezekiel was always looking up. He looked up to spot food. He looked up to watch the faint shadows of other fish. And sometimes he just looked up because it reminded him there was always something above the darkness. Ezekiel had a favorite game. It wasn't really a game, it was just the way he moved. And he liked having fun as he moved. Up, forward. Up, forward, he chanted, swiveling his eyes up toward the ocean roof, then forward toward the open water. That's the way his eyes turned, and he liked to practice. His stomach gave a loud grumble. "Oh, hush, you," Ezekiel the barreleye fish chuckled. "Food will come if we're patient. Keep looking up with me," he said to his stomach. The deep sea could feel lonely at times, and where Ezekiel was, it was dark all the time. The only lights came from glowing creatures, like sparkling shrimp, twinkling jellies, and fish that carried little lanterns on their heads. It looked a little like the night sky, but filled with stars that swam. "See?" Ezekiel the barreleye fish told his stomach. "Even here, there are lights to look up to." Ezekiel was always looking up. But life in the deep wasn't easy. Food didn't come by very often. Ezekiel had a very small mouth, so he couldn't just chomp anything he wanted. He had to wait patiently for tiny animals and jellyfish to drift down from above. Sometimes, he floated perfectly still, hardly moving his fins so he wouldn't waste energy. He let the ocean currents carry him along. One day, his eye spotted a glowing jelly from above. "Dinner," Ezekiel whispered. His stomach grumbled, almost like it was saying, "Yes, please." He swam carefully upward, but just as he opened his mouth, the current pushed the jelly away. "Oh, currents," Ezekiel the barreleye fish huffed. "Always playing keep away with my food." He tried again with another jelly. Gone. By the third try, his stomach groaned loudly. I know, Ezekiel sighed, talking to his stomach. "You're starving, but we'll get something soon." Still, Ezekiel kept looking up. Later, Ezekiel the barreleye fish noticed another glow above him, wiggling like a tasty treat. His eyes lit up. His stomach squeaked, almost like it was saying, "Eat it, eat it." But Ezekiel swiveled his eyes forward and focused on the light. Aha! That glow was attached to a very big mouth with very sharp teeth. It was an anglerfish. "Quiet, stomach. That's no snack. That's a trap," Ezekiel whispered to his stomach. He drifted downward away from the anglerfish, letting the current hide him. The anglerfish, disappointed, figured that Ezekiel wouldn't be coming back anytime soon, and so it swam away. For Ezekiel the Barreleye Fish, sometimes looking up also meant being careful about what he chased. The next day, a strong current rushed through the deep sea. Ezekiel was swept up in the current. He spun and tumbled, his little fins flapping all around, trying to gain control. "Whoa! Whoa!" Ezekiel the Barreleye Fish yelled as he was tumbling in the current. "This is not the kind of ride that I wanted." His stomach was even wobbling inside him, almost like it was saying, "Make it stop." Ezekiel wanted to fight the current, but he was too small. So he tucked his fins and let it carry him. Hours passed, and the current was still carrying Ezekiel, and Ezekiel wondered where he would end up. When the water finally calmed, he swiveled his eyes upward, and he gasped in delight. Above him floated a whole field of glowing jellies, more than he had ever seen. They shimmered all around, just drifting there deep in the ocean. Ezekiel's stomach gave a happy squeal, and Ezekiel the Barreleye Fish said, "Now this is the kind of current I like." Then he snapped up all the drifting jellies that he could until he was full. Not long after, Ezekiel the Barreleye Fish noticed another jelly. But this one wasn't glowing. Its body was floppy and torn, wobbling sadly through the water. Ezekiel swiveled his eyes forward, ready to eat. His stomach even grumbled, almost like it was saying, "Easy snack." But then he stopped. The jelly looked broken and weak. Ezekiel the Barreleye Fish thought about how he had been tossed helplessly through the current, unable to control where he went. He thought about how sometimes he needed help too. So, instead of biting, Ezekiel whispered, "Keep drifting, little jelly. The ocean is hard, but you still belong here." And he let it go. His stomach grumbled. But Ezekiel felt lighter somehow. Weeks later, the currents grew still. The water around Ezekiel the Barreleye Fish was quiet. No jellies drifting down. No glowing shrimp. Nothing at all. His stomach groaned like it was saying, "We're doomed." Ezekiel shook his head and said to his stomach, "No, we're not doomed, but we can't just drift this time either. We're going to have to swim for it." So Ezekiel the Barreleye Fish swiveled his eyes forward, braced himself, and began to swim, harder than he had ever before. His fins beat the water again and again, even though his muscles ached. At last, he spotted a faint shadow above. He looked up. It was a real jellyfish, moving gently. With one final burst, he snapped it up. His stomach cheered, almost like it was saying, "You did it!" Ezekiel sighed with relief. Sometimes looking up means swimming with all your strength until you get there. And Ezekiel got there. That night, Ezekiel drifted in the glowing sea, surrounded by jellies, shrimp, and fish that glowed. Life in the deep ocean was dark and sometimes difficult, but it was also full of wonder. And even in the hardest moments, Ezekiel's eyes were always turned upward, finding light, finding food, and finding a way. And the Barreleye fish lived happily ever after. The end. Barreleye fishes belong to the family Opisthopteroctidae. One famous kind is called Macropinna microstoma, also known as the Pacific barreleye. Barreleye fishes can be found in the twilight zone of the ocean. That's about 2,000 to 2,600 feet deep in the ocean. Barreleye fish can be found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. Barreleye fish, like the Pacific barreleye, can have a see-through head, like a clear bubble, so you can peek inside. Their eyes are large green tubes that point upward. If you're looking at a barreleye fish, like the Pacific barreleye, the two spots near their mouth are not their eyes. They're like fishy nostrils called olfactory organs to help them smell. Barreleye fish can see in low light, but they cannot see very well in color. Barreleye fish can rotate their eyes forward when they spot something to eat. Barreleyes have big, flat fins that help them hover almost motionless in water so they can watch and wait. Barreleyes mostly eat tiny creatures like plankton, siphonophores, small fish, and crustaceans, and little animals stuck on jellyfish. Barreleye fish mainly eat food that drifts their way. There are many kinds of barreleye in the family Opisthopteroctidae. Barreleye fish are still being researched. They were first described in 1939, but only filmed alive for the very first time in the early 2000s using robot cameras from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. Barreleye fish are rarely seen because they're shy and they live in places where humans and boats don't normally go. There's still much more to learn about barreleye fishes. Have you seen a real-life barreleye fish before? If you have, where did you see it? If you want to write to us, ask your parent to email us at animalstoriesforkids@gmail.com and tell us what you think of our stories. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to Animal Stories for Kids. If you like our stories, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with your friends and family. Plus, check out exclusive show-related content and join the community at patreon.com/animalstoriesforkids. Until next time, bye!